So I'm always in the parking lot. And there's actually a few of the business owners that they may not agree with the fact that I curse, but they curse. They understand why I do it. And although they agree with it, it's the rudeness of public that they don't agree with. A lot of people think you should be nice in public and save the screaming and cursing for in private. Well, I try the decency and humanity in private, and I will scream and shout in public. Tried being nice, it didn't work. Anyway, so two of the businesses here wanted to ask me to help out a little bit and keep my eyes on things. One of them is a fireworks stand, and the other one is one of the other businesses here in the parking lot asking me if, well, they had some break-ins, so they gave me some details and told me what to look out for, and that's what I'm going to do. Also, I did try to, and I know this is strange because them youngins are constantly out here making messes, making noises, being a pain in the butt. But on the other hand, you know, I was young and you were young, and we all got to have a place to escape from our parents' reality. Got to have somewhere to have some sort of socialization, some sort of social life. When you have special needs kids, we're not necessarily all that special in needs. What we need is you to listen to understand, for you to not pretend that our emotions are different than yours, for you to not pretend that we don't have them, or that somehow ours are broken because we're different than you. Let me explain something to you. Let's say you're born black, right? You haven't done anything wrong, you're just black. That's different from most of the people around you. Does that make it okay to hurt you for being black? How about if they had a pill? Imagine if they had a pill that would make you lighter skinned. By the way, they do. It's a melanin inhibitor. And you can actually turn yourself into a near albino. You can also make yourself go blind using them. I mean that. Like, literally blind. Make your eyes so sensitive that you can burn out your cornea. Isn't it the cornea? Is that the right one? I have to look up the anatomy of an eyeball again. Now over there at the Denny's, Mike McKinster definitely did feel safer with me having my camera and being there. I wasn't going to let anybody hurt them. And I still won't. If I hear somebody threatening to kill people over there, what am I going to do? I'm going to do the stupid thing, and I'm going to go over there and make sure that nobody ends up with a hole in their head. And if somebody does end up with a hole in their head, it ends up being not them. When it comes to the theft that goes on here, yeah, we're pretty certain that it's people. Fairly certain that those homeless people got the bolt cutters from somebody in a house. Yeah, there's a lot of crimes that are committed by the homeless. There's also a lot more crimes committed against the homeless. The guy over there, he come and talked to me. It's not Cabela's. That's what I told him too. I said, you know, I can understand, you know, if it was, it's not like you guys are Cabela's and have all sorts of money for any sort of real security. And even if you did, you know, if you had the money like Cabela's, then you'd have had them busted already. You know? But it's a matter of not shitting where you sleep. It's a matter of not crapping where you eat. Right now, I'm not doing anything extra special. I'm going to be in this parking lot regardless. Some folks give me $10 to sit here and make sure nobody stole nothing from the fireworks tent. That's when one of the other business owners come and talk to me. Funny thing is, I keep an eye on everything anyway. You get to see me. When them kids are out there just tearing off being assholes, they're not harming anybody. They're just being assholes. They're not breaking into the business and anything like that. They're just messing around. You know that they're squealing their tires through the parking lot and noise the crap out of me. Glad I didn't choke on that or I would have puked. I suppose I could have told that business owner that I do have surveillance equipment in my car that I can set up. I think I might tell him that tomorrow morning. The business owner also, when I was talking about the kids, how they make a lot of sounds and stuff, and I was about to explain to him that, mostly they're just screwing around as kids. I don't think they're the ones doing this stuff. I should have asked him if there was a Smith & Wesson 40 that was stolen. Matter of fact, let me see what time it is. 7:41. Nope, they're closed for the day. I'll go talk to him in the morning and ask him if there was any firearms stolen. If so, we know where that gun is because it was featured on my channel. So we'll find out in the morning. We'll hope that it's not a stolen firearm. We'll hope that it's just piddly shit that's being stolen from the place. Fishing gear or lures or something stupid like that. If it turns out that that firearm was obtained illegally from stealing from the businesses, though, you don't steal from local businesses, especially small businesses. I don't agree with all these Second Amendmenters that want to ignore the First Amendment. But I do wholeheartedly agree with the Second Amendment and its purpose. What you need to understand is that at no point in time is it required for me to get a background check to get a firearm. Do you know that about the United States? No matter how many laws you make, the only people that ever accepted me are the criminal underground. And for some odd reason, people trust me far more than they should with their information. For some of you, it's because you knew me before I hurt my back. Before the situation with Natalie. You remember who I was. The nice guy who would keep your secrets and be the wallflower. Who would take the abuse to keep you safe, and you knew it. After Natalie died, however, matter of fact, end of November, I made a video how I'm not keeping anybody's secrets anymore. November of 2016. Sorry, November of 2017. About a month before Natalie got her brains blown out. I'd let Natalie know all the way back in September of 2017. After all the threats and harassment against my life, people threatening to kill my friends and family, including her drug dealing ex-boyfriends. They got to project their evils onto me, and so did the Bollinger family, and you won't take a look. You're too busy telling me how to think and how to feel. You're too busy making sure that your community is unsafe. Just so you know, I do take firearm safety very seriously. I also take the possibility of murder very seriously. I take Chris Stafford trying to buy an illegal firearm very seriously. I take those old guys over at McDonald's talking about getting illegal firearms and killing homeless people. I take that very seriously. It don't matter though, does it? You're gonna sell whatever narrative you want and ain't nobody gonna look. I'm the hobo and you're not. Now, I keep an eye on this thing out here, regardless of whether those people offer me money or not. They gave me $10 today to keep an eye on their thing over there. I took the $10, I accepted it, but I'm gonna keep an eye on their stuff no matter what. If somebody does something bad, steals from a place like that, while my car is sitting here, it makes me look bad. It makes me look like somebody who's going to look the other way, and by God, I will not. Now, as a scientist, not a Scientologist, but as a scientist, I don't rule out the possibility of a God. There might be a God. I just don't believe that any of you have the right idea about it. I don't think any of you are godly enough to decide what it is that God wants or why. I also know that being part of a community, even if only temporarily, it is important that I keep my community safe. I cannot hope or expect for people to give me a treatment I'm not willing to give them. If I'm not willing to protect you... Oh, yes! Hold on, that's that Jet Ranger helicopter. Let me show it to you. We saw that one earlier. It was making a roundabout. Oh, man, I forgot. I can't zoom in on the phone. Anyway, it's a Jet Ranger helicopter. It has two Rolls-Royce engines in it, the same engines that are in the OH-6 or now the AH-6 or the, what else was it in? The Cayuse, also known as the OH-6 Loach, also the MD-500, which stood for McDonnell Douglas 500. Now the company changed hands several times, but they still produce a version of that helicopter. Now they're producing versions of that helicopter that are unmanned. It's a Vietnam-era helicopter. Now the engine that goes in it, that's the Rolls-Royce 250. The Russians made a version similar, not nearly as good. It weighs more and it doesn't have the same shaft horsepower. It's the GTD 350, and it's a knockoff of the Allison 250, which was sold to Rolls-Royce. This is the same Allison that is famous for the Allison transmissions. They didn't just make transmissions. Now the OH-6 Cayuse had it at an angle and in the rear of the craft, whereas the Jet Ranger helicopter has two of them, tandem, one on either side above the crew cab. And these are They're not exactly reverse flow, but they're almost reverse flow jet engines. They also make turbofan and turbojet versions of it. A turbofan is basically putting a propeller on the front of a jet engine with a gear reduction box. Basically what that is it's a set of planetary gears that surround a central sprocket, and as those gears turn around, they're smaller and they're attached to a bigger gear. And what happens is that the gearing ratio between the smaller discs and the larger ones makes it so that the larger one spins around slower. Now you can change the gear ratio by making the outside sprockets bigger and the internal sprockets smaller. But also you have to triangulate it. That means that you have to have 4 sprockets at least. And the external ring of sprockets, or triangle of sprockets, basically bracket the internal sprocket. And that makes it so the internal sprocket doesn't have any give or play. It's not going to rock back and forth this way or up or down. It's basically creating a bearing and a stabilizer for the parts that are spinning. The planetary reduction gear goes back all the way back to the very beginning of flight. When we look at the planetary reduction gear, even the very first purpose-built airplane engine made by the United States was built in the 1800s. That's right. First flight was when? It was December of 1903. Kill Devil Hills. Kill Devil Hills. What a name. It's amazing with a name like that the Wright brothers ever made it into the air. They also had a 209-pound engine made primarily of aluminum, which was a new metal of the day. Meanwhile, the Manly Balzer engine with a planetary reduction gear had over 50 horsepower, weighed less than 100 pounds, had a planetary reduction gear. It was actually lighter weight than Gnome monosopop engines. Monosopop means single valve. Very cool engines. They got 2 different variants. And then they have the knockoff versions, the Oberursel and the Oberursel 2. These are knockoffs of the Gnome Lerone engine company's designs. Many of them derived from the Manly Balzer engine. Now you got different types of aircraft that were built during World War I. We're going to get around to how this has to do with modern day and protecting your community too. So they've got the fabric covered. That takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of wooden struts, and it takes a lot of effort, and it doesn't really increase the structural stability of the craft at all. The monocoque design means that they basically make the entire fuselage of the aircraft, that's the body of it minus the wings and the tail, or the tail planes, that would be the rudder and the my brain isn't working right at the moment. Anyway, the monocoque design is what was used first on the Albatross aircraft. The Albatross was made of sheets of laminate. It's literally sheets of plywood, single ply, that are put on in layers at angles opposing to one another. And what that does is once you put the 2 halves of the shell together, in itself it is structurally stable. And then it's got internal ribbing to make it even stronger. And although it does give it just a few ounces of extra weight, and that's really all the extra it does. I mean, the fabric with the paints on it And then you have to make the internal wires, and you have to have all the stuff to wrench down each and every one of those. And then, of course, you have to check it before each flight to make sure that none of those, they're called buckles. You got to make sure that none of the buckles have come loose, and that none of the wires that hold them from coming loose have come out or broken or de-stranded or rusted through. It's really maintenance intensive, whereas if you've got a monocoque design, basically it's a matter of putting some putty in the hole and letting it dry, sanding it off. Today, we don't want to know about any of that stuff. We want everything prefab, designed by somebody else. We don't have to do any work, we just throw some money at it. So we're getting rid of a bunch of stuff that, by all intents and purposes, is useless to the modern world because nobody knows how to use it, nobody knows how to work it. People expect computers to do everything for them. I remember in the 1980s, we were still learning how to use an abacus in school. I also remember the debate about how stupid it is to teach kids how to use an abacus when we have calculators. Now I get to hear the argument of how stupid it is to have kids do any sort of math class when their phone will do the math for them. Well, then you're entirely dependent upon technology. Sure, it frees up some time so you can go chasing booze, chasing women, chasing men, chasing attention, chasing some fun. But it also leaves you stupid and ignorant. Hey, I'll trade you this thing for that thing. That's right, I wouldn't want to lose my job either. You're good.
I can't hear you.
I said, I'll trade you this car for that one.
No, you don't want this one. The only thing you want on this one is the aluminum.
Yeah, you're probably right. United States Postal Vehicle. It's one of the little electric ones. But when they go out, they go out. I don't see any fire damage on that one. That's the thing you have to worry about the most. On the type of motors that they have, a lot of times when they burn out, they melt together. And then when they melt together, basically it's a piece of copper trying to weld itself to a piece of iron, and it doesn't work out so good. It'll actually the density of the copper in those things, it's pressed copper. It's not like a copper winding, like a regular electric motor, where you've got a bunch of wires and they're insulated and then they're wrapped around a coil. A coil is just a piece of ferrous metal, iron or steel. And that's what makes your magnetic coil. It's the same thing that runs a Rainbird sprinkler or a Toro sprinkler. But on one of those ones were made, they were based off of, alright, so electric engines give you immediate torque. I'm not sure how many of you knew that. You are not going to find an engine that gives you more immediate torque than an electric motor. The ones that they use in those are similar to the ones that were used for irrigation pumps. I was driving away, but we'll get a picture of it. It's on the back of a flatbed. Anyway, the ones in irrigation pumps, we're talking about high density pressed copper. We're not talking about copper windings. We're talking about quasi triangles of pressed copper. It's a lot heavier than regular copper. It's almost like 1 1/3 times the density of regular copper. But when they get hot and they overheat and they start to basically melt themselves, they'll start melting the steel around them too. And then that's when everything starts to melt, and it doesn't want to fuse together because they're two very different metals. But also they're hot enough to light the whole thing on fire. And then, of course, the batteries that they have in those, they're in a plastic packaging. They don't withstand a whole lot of heat. And they also have because of the type of batteries that they use, if you light them on fire, I got to see some cool videos of this, What they do is when they overcharge the batteries, let's say you plug in one of those U.S. Postal Service vehicles and the regulator on it breaks, burns out, whatever it happens to have happen, it'll actually shoot a flame up to 6 feet out of the top of the battery. Anyway, if we were to take the Manly Balzer engine and stick it into a monocoque fuselage, we'd basically be making the premier vehicle that you could have entered the war with in World War One. There's a few other things like streamlined wires, taking out the bucklers and all of the wood and all of the structural stability of the wood, because you're actually using the skin as part of the structural stability. The same as riveting together a airframe today. The more rivets, the more structural stability, to a point. Back then, they didn't have the flush-mounted riveting like we have today. That was actually invented, believe it or not, that was invented for submarines. Flush-mounted rivets were invented for submarines, not for aircraft. Thank goodness the aircraft industry was able to pick up on it just from paying attention. You look at a good idea, it doesn't take much to realize it's actually a good idea. This technology, all of this information, we've surpassed it and lost it at the same time. If we had to start over from scratch, we'd all have problems. Thank goodness we have the knowledge that it's a possibility, because it's already been done. And that is much of the benefit that we have over our ancestors, is that we have the benefit of past experiences. We have the benefit of their mistakes to learn from. We have the benefit of realizing that we can take the good from a society and leave the bad. Yes, my hair's messed up and it makes me look crazy. I get it. It's a horrible thing that Americans will only come together for war. When it comes to fighting for basic human rights, we have people that fight so hard to prevent other people from having those rights. Why is it that we have so many people in America, land of the free, home of the brave, who are so bigotous that they don't want homosexuals to have the same rights they do? That they don't want men to have the same rights that they do? That they feel that women belong in the kitchen with no shoes? Or that homeless folks belong in internment camps, forced labor camps, and extermination camps? Why is it the people that uphold the Second Amendment so greatly ignore the First Amendment altogether? And why is it that people can't hang out in a parking lot without being disrespectful to it or to the people there? You notice I'm disrespectful. You also notice that even though those youngins are down here tearing stuff up every night, they're not breaking into the businesses. They're not beating the hell out of each other. They're just being kids. Most of the time when I get out of the vehicle, it's because some guys are messing around and yelling at each other, angry sounding. I know most of the time that's just messing around. Or I hear a girl squeal, and that's something a lot of people find funny. They think it's the most hilarious thing in the world to make a girl squeal. Well, I pay attention when that happens, and I get out and I take a look just in case. A lot of times the difference between those crimes being committed and them being stopped comes down to whether or not you are willing to do something about it. Are you a coward or no? I know who the most likely culprits are in a lot of these cases. It's not difficult to meet them within the first week of being homeless. A lot of times people want to know what you're about, and a lot of people will come up and try to meet you because they want to know if they can mark you. By mark you, I mean that means target you. They want to size you up and find out if you're easy to take advantage of or not. Whether or not you're into the same drugs as them, because then they might have another hookup or they might be able to make a profit. But that doesn't mean that every homeless person out here is selling drugs or trying to skis off you. There's a lot of these homeless people that had the same issues as me. Jim Roberts spoke to him today. He said that Robert Farnsworth apologized to him. Thank goodness, that's a good start. Now, if only Robbie could be like that all the time. But he goes back and forth, and we're used to it. But we shouldn't have to be used to it. For a lot of the people committing these crimes, it's a matter of the fact that the police helped them to get away because they didn't want to investigate it. It wasn't worth their time, wasn't worth their effort. And they want to tell all these civilians, oh, well, we were defunded. Well, you're spending an awful lot of money for people who are defunded. You're spending an awful lot of money to give therapists free money for not doing their jobs as mandated reporters. You're spending an awful lot of money to make sure that the victimized stay victimized. And then, of course, everything that goes wrong, you just blame it on a mentally ill person. Smart. People don't want to believe somebody they think is mentally ill. That's why you use the term mentally ill, is to discredit your victims. Many people who did wrong things to me wanted to later on use that insult. Well, that doesn't work. I'm not sure if you noticed, but I'm quite a jerk. I'm not the nicest dude on the planet. I try to be nice where I'm able and allowed. But I'm not always able, and I'm not always allowed. And what the hell is this about? Why do I have an aluminum drill bit? Anyway, the business is here talking to me because I'm in the parking lot. Mike McKinster said that it does make him feel safer knowing that I'm there. But also, when I got kicked out over there, did the police show up to help me out at all? No, they showed up just to tell me I wasn't allowed there in the parking lot. Because I had a meltdown over abuse and over people ignoring me. About people wanting to make it story time when it comes to actually helping somebody out. Let's see if I can use my cane as a hammer to hammer an aluminum drill bit that's bent through this thing of carnation evaporated milk so I can make myself some delicious coffee drink with sugar and creamer and all that. Yeah, it's not gonna work. Worth a try though. You know, I'm in the parking lot. There's actually a couple of business owners here who told me they heard about my channel, and the guy who talked to me a little bit earlier about his business getting stolen, getting broken into. I spend a lot of money there. So, you know, it's a business that it's in my best interest for them not to get closed down. Matter of fact, most of the stuff up at my camp in the mountains that I can't make it to and don't have any help carrying it anyway. Most of that stuff I got here or at Fred Meyer's. And I do believe in supporting my local businesses. I also believe that when you start stealing from local businesses, you're stealing from yourself. You're stealing from the whole community. When you look the other way to the most victimized people within your community, however, you're also stealing from your community. You're stealing from yourselves. You're stealing from your kids. You're stealing from your future. And why is that? Because it costs a lot of money to look the other way. It costs a lot of money to hide the fact that you look the other way. It costs a lot of time and a lot of taxpayer dollars to hide it when the cops are fucking useless. It also takes a lot of taxpayer dollars to pay therapists when you want to pawn us off on therapists instead of doing your job as human beings to protect your rights. You don't want the things that have happened to me to happen to you. I guarantee you that. You do not want these things happening. A lot of people, they use that as their excuse for not coming forward. Is that, yeah, sure, it's wrong and they know that it happened, but they don't want to be targeted. Oh, I get that. I also get that because you look the other way and because you didn't protect me, I can't be there to protect you now. So there's a lot of people who want to tell me now, after all this time of ignoring me going through hell, they want to tell me about the hell that they're going through and how they need help. Did I find a way to help them, or did I make excuses not to? Ask Mandy Singer, did I find a way to help her when she was abused in Arizona? Did I help her to the best of my ability to have resources when she got to Colorado because it was snowing? Did I call everybody that I possibly could to make sure that she was safe, that she had gear, that she had a blanket? You're damn right I did. It's Mandy Singer. I remember who she was, back in the day and today. I know why she did the horrible things that she did, and don't get me wrong, they are horrible. But I do believe that her reasons are valid, because I was there for those reasons. I was there for everything that could possibly go wrong, getting dropped on her plate all at once. Wasn't her choice, she didn't ask for it. There's also her legitimate fears of getting in trouble for helping somebody out when she's low income, when she's staying in low income housing. The problems that she had were very real. The fact that she ripped me off, well, I'm going to tell you something about her ripping me off. She didn't do it intentionally. She didn't do it mean-hearted. She didn't do it to be a hateful human being. She did it because she was scared shitless and because she was getting screwed over. Now, how dare I speak up about Mandy Singer, right? How dare I if she had good intentions? Well, good intentions aside, she didn't speak up. Not with me and not to the right people. She did at least speak up on my YouTube, which is a big help. The problem is I still need someone to help me to turn that in and to process the evidence. I needed Mandy Singer to speak up about the situation. Now, she knew what was going on. She knew the help that I was trying to get, but she also redid the deal on multiple occasions. She also cost me a lot of money. Now, are people within any community going to help me if I'm harmed in this way? No, not likely. It's more likely that they're going to tell me what to think and what to feel, but nothing else. Oh, this'll work. All right. Hopefully this bit isn't aluminum. Sorry about the noise. If you have sensory processing issues and you are currently in a state of panic or a state of being overwhelmed, I highly recommend that you turn off the sound for a few seconds, because I'm going to get me some milk. Make sure we shake it up. If I shake it too hard, it hurts. All right. Nope. An aluminum bit is not going to do the job. Nope, that's not it actually. Alright, let's hope I don't stab myself in the leg while this thing's running. Well, all it's done is discolor the bit. It's hot as hell. Whew! I think my milk is probably boiling too. And that right there is all the more it did. So I guess I'll today. Was worth a try. Maybe if I let the bit cool down, since this one's straight, I can use it for bashing through it. There's a lot of stuff that you guys make into a big horrible task, and thus you never get started. Or you get started thinking about just you, but not the people that you ask. The people that you ask for help. Do you stop to consider that they have made sacrifices for you? Do you acknowledge their sacrifices? Or do you try to tell them that they owe it to you for whatever reason? Are you one of those people who manipulates people by using your kids? You know the routine. Somebody, hey, I need help. I got kids. If you ever need anything, just let me know. When I need something, it's, oh, I can't tell the truth. I have kids. I can't do the right thing. I've got kids. Seems to me your kids are just an excuse. When you don't keep your word, it's not your kid's fault. It's your fault. You didn't keep your word. That got nothing to do with your kids. If you can't come forward to the police and the courts because of something that supposedly happened to your kids, that you're using as an excuse to not keep your word, something that I'm being treated like I'm a schizophrenic and delusional person for saying, that makes you It doesn't make me a bad person for telling the truth. And if people weren't threatening you and your family, you shouldn't have said that they did. When you don't come forward to the police, or to anybody else for that matter. When you don't come forward about those things, it makes it very difficult to believe you. When you tell me that these things happen, but then when I'm being treated like I'm a liar for saying, hey, people are getting a hold of me saying that their friends and family, their lives are being threatened. Their children's lives are being threatened. But I get treated like I'm a schizophrenic who made it up because none of these people came forward with me about it. Why didn't they? If these things really happened, they should want their families to be safe. Meanwhile, when I told people that people were threatening to kill my family, there's a lot of folks who didn't take it seriously, but wanted to tell me they were taking it seriously. Telling me things like, oh, I can handle it, I can handle it, we can handle it. And then once you have to go through it, it's different, isn't it? Once you realize I'm telling the truth, then you're getting a hold of me and saying, Sean, I'm scared for my friends, I'm scared for my family. Really? Imagine that. Now you know how I felt before Natalie was killed. But then again, if you and your friends and family were really threatened, you would have come forward about it. Many of my predators wanted to pretend like I threatened them and their families. Because somehow that magically justifies things, doesn't it? Or if they can harass me and threaten me and intimidate me into doing the things they were pretending I did to begin with, then magically it justifies all of the gaslighting to it. If you gaslight a disabled person enough, it becomes that disabled person's fault that you victimized them. At least that's the way that our society sees it. When somebody is being abused, but you can call them mentally ill, that takes away every right that they have as a human being. Alright, somebody has a sexually chosen name here. Someone called Leonie Areola. And if you know what an Areola is, this name is standing out to me. A lot of people make profiles like what was the one that's real popular? Richard. I don't know, Richard something or other. Basically, it's a bunch of people having a bunch of names for their fake profile that all kind of go together. Like the Rich Life of feller. He had a bunch of accounts called the Rich Life of Ativan, the Rich Life of 666, the Rich Life of... And he just made a whole bunch of these to harass me. I've been dealing with these assholes since before Natalie Bollinger was killed. A lot of the same stuff, too. Some of the sayings and quotes that they use show me that it's very specifically one of three people. But I don't know which one it is in specific, and I don't want to blame the wrong person. When it comes to being in a community, it's important to be a part of the community. Christian grew up here in Bay City as well. And he has no problems walking into the pizza place while they're still going on. Walking into that place and grabbing people's pizza off the table. Anyway, the local businessman that came up to me this evening and asked me to keep an eye out. Told me what to look for and what implements to pay attention to. I gotta go in tomorrow, and I'm gonna ask him if there's a Smith & Wesson 40 millimeter, or sorry, Smith & Wesson 40 caliber, if that's among the things that were stolen. I can give him a definition of the pistol, what it looked like, what colors on the top versus the frame, and if that's on the list that are taken, we could probably get it back for him pretty easily. As far as the youngins that are in the parking lot, do they bug me? Yeah, of course they do. To the point that the police need to be called? No, not usually. Not usually. Most of the time when there's an issue where I feel it might be important to call the police, it's usually a Christian is threatening to kill people, or one of them other folks over there is threatening to kill people, or somebody's being choked out, somebody is being assaulted. As far as youngins tearing up a parking lot, I get that. I didn't get to tear up parking lots when I was younger. I didn't get a driver's license till I was 23. By that point, it would have been an automatic crime. It wouldn't have been no leniency or I'm sorry or taking me home to my parents or anything of that nature. Anyway, hi, Leonie Areola. I noticed you put up a bunch of pink hands. If that's something in reference to missing and murdered indigenous peoples, thank you for posting that up. Because we really need that. We need to stick up for our brothers and sisters. See, that's one thing that I learned in Hardin, Montana. We're all brothers and sisters. Mary Mountain Sheep, Lila Mountain Sheep. They treated me like family. Where my own family looked the other way, ripped me off, and took advantage of me. You know, I always tried hard to make my community better no matter what community I'm in. But that also includes me speaking up about the environment, me speaking up about abuses by the police. To those of you in houses, I must be a homeless drug addict, and a rapist, and a murderer, and all sorts of other creepy stuff. To the people out here on the streets, I might as well be a cop. I don't do any of their drugs. I don't approve of their drugs, and I don't approve of their theft. Now, if they steal from Walmart, well, no offense or nothing, but since Sam Walton's death, it's been pretty obvious that Walmart doesn't care about its customers. The other thing is, people don't have to ask me to keep an eye out. I'm going to keep an eye out regardless. I'm half tempted to stay out behind that person, behind their business, and just camp out there permanently. But then again, I wouldn't be able to keep my stuff safe, would I? I wouldn't be able to keep my evidence safe, would I? Out of all the stuff that I left up in the mountains, my evidence wasn't among it. I make sure that goes with me everywhere, in case somebody is willing to look at it. Sometimes you gotta be the change you want to see in the world. I'd like to see a lot more people willing to go to prison to protect children. Is it worth it? Prison is hell. Your guilt is assumed, even if you're someone like me who is in there for, first of all, crimes that were never committed. They had to drop the charges because the evidence of any actual crimes did not exist. They had just enough evidence of me saying things that are not illegal that they tried to pass that off as, well, these things are true, even though they're not illegal, so you should believe us when we tell you he did something that's bonjour.
Hey, Ben. Well, I got you a milkshake and some breakfast for dinner.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Good man. Thank you.
My dear Lord Almighty Cheese and Rice, Burger King, and Denny's.
All on the same day.
Nobody stole your tent.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a Christian band called Happily Ever After. Let me show you my bracelet. We'll make sure that you can actually read it. The Hope Dealer shirt that I wear. Hope Dealer. I got that shirt from some people that are with a band called Happily Ever After. And a lot of people ask me about the shirt, including the people over there at the fireworks stand. The Hope Dealer shirt. Whether you're Christian or not, I do believe in the message of dealing hope instead of dope. Lead by example. When I was in prison for trying to tell on a sex offender named Robert Franklin Mornick, who threatened to kill me, threatened to assault me, and then assaulted me. Then when I got out of prison, he assaulted me again. I had to turn him in to other people whose friends, family, and coworkers had threatened my life. Because I was trying to turn in Sheriff Scott DaCosta and all of his deputies, and Leslie Snell. And of course, as always, I'm forced to go to Leslie Snell and Scott DaCosta to turn in anything in Dual County because there's no police department to turn them into. And of course, well, all the law enforcement know each other. They all work together. They're all friends with one another. For me to have to go to the Nebraska State Patrol in Dual County to turn in Scott DaCosta, or have to travel all the way to Scotts Bluff to turn in Scott DaCosta, that's horrible. It's even worse to be put in prison because you told on your abusers and you were forced to go to your abusers to turn in more abusers. Scott DaCosta didn't do anything about any of my abusers. His department ignored the abuse against me before Natalie's death. They ignored the abuse against me after Natalie's death. They refused to investigate any of the crimes committed against me, or to even go talk to any of my predators. And they preyed on my disabilities, as they do to this day. They try to pretend that Tourette syndrome is drug use, and that autism is schizophrenia. How dare you? You goddamn right, I fight. Every community I go to, I fight. I fight for the rights of the people you don't care about. People like Jamie in the Dalles, Oregon. And Daniel in Hood River, Oregon. And Dean in Hood River, Oregon. I also stick up for people like Dora here. I look out for the drug addicts here the same as I look out for the business owners. I also pay attention to my surroundings so I know what the hell is going on instead of just assuming. I do a better job of investigating than the cops do, and I don't have any of their resources. It's too bad they don't have access to mine. Maybe if they were more trustworthy, more of these homeless people would be able to trust them and go to them about crimes. Because when those crimes are committed, it hurts all of us. It hurts the entire community. Just like when these therapists, who are mandated reporters that we're sent to, want to ignore our disabilities or antagonize the situation or blow us off for months at a time while sending us to therapy after therapy after therapy, charging you, the American public, for every bit of it. And all it does is help the predators to get away. The monocoque design for aircraft, that was German. Most of the designs that the Germans copied were French, or Marine Saulnier in specific. Some of them are direct copies of the Newports, like the Fokker Eindecker. It's a monoplane. That means that it has one set of wings. A biplane has two sets of wings. A triplane, or a Dreidecker in German, is three sets of wings. But technically, the Fokker DR1, this is a Belgian man, by the way, who made these and designed them. The Fokker DR1 technically had four wings, because there was another wing plane in between the landing gear, in between wheels. Now, if we'd worked together in peacetime instead of all that wartime stuff, if we worked together in peace as hard as we work together for war, we could have a lot real quick. But Americans, we're so keen on making sure nobody gets anything for free that we end up ripping each other off and ripping ourselves off for a lot more than it would cost just to give it up. That disabled person is obviously disabled. And it'd be a lot cheaper just to help them as a disabled person than it would be to allow people to harm them until they have a mental breakdown and then locking them up for having a mental breakdown. The Manly Balzer engine. A Fokker monocoque with a Manly Balzer. Imagine if we'd have had that instead of the Wright brothers going out there with a 209-pound, 12-horsepower engine. They could have had an engine that weighed less than 100 pounds and had 50 horsepower. They'd have had a monocoque engine or a monocoque body design on it. It'd have been a lot more structurally stable. And if it had been designed by Anthony Fokker, a Belgian, well, imagine the barnstorming that we could have had in the 1920s and 30s. Imagine if the aircraft community, instead of fighting with the Wright brothers, would have said, well, we don't really care. You're not going to be able to take our money. Are you really going to go to war over an airplane patent? Are you really so trivial? Anyway, the people whose fireworks stand I was watching, they brought me some dinner. I'm going to eat it while it's still warm. I'm going to drink my... well, it looked kind of like a Dairy Queen Breezer. Obviously, the kids are out here tearing shit up every night. They're not getting violent. I don't give two shits. Yeah, it annoys the living hell out of me. But as long as they're not hurting people, who cares? It's just noise. Yes, it prevents me from being able to take care of myself. It prevents me from being able to function. And it prevents me from being able to stay on topic from time to time. Just because I didn't get to do that tearing around when I was younger Doesn't mean I don't believe that they should be allowed to make mistakes and screw up. How else are you going to learn? Bill 10 typed, "Hi, Sean." Hi, Bill 10. I like the name. Bill 10's typed, "So it is hurting you." You mean the noise? Yes, it does. It's not their fault that the place that I'm stranded is their playground. I mean, these are young adults. Where did you have as a playground when you got your first vehicle? Where did you go? What did you do? Who did you hang out with? What kind of activities did you take part in at that age? They're not acting like that because they're trying to antagonize my disabilities, which is what the police do, and which is what these services do that we're sent to. They intentionally antagonize homeless people with disabilities. Yes, what these youngins are doing is hurting. It does actually physically hurt me, but it's not a choice that they made to do so. It's not their fault that I don't have another place to go. And yeah, sure, I can drive to another parking lot over and over and over again, but most of the parking lots on this end of town have already been used up. And as far as the parking lots in town, I have to worry about Farnsworth. I have to worry about if he has one of his bad days. And he has a lot of them. Oreo cookie. I think that's what it's supposed to be. Yes, it does hurt me, as built-in typed. But that's because I have post-traumatic stress disorder. And because for autistic people, we need a place to defragment. We have to have a place where we can get away from you and not have to be afraid of you pursuing us there. Or not have to be afraid of some Karen being offended that we exist. When you try to man trap and the man don't do what you want and you go after a homeless man to take it out on someone. Or you're stuck living with your dad because you're afraid if you leave, then he'll molest your little sister. And you're afraid if you tell on him, you'll end up in foster care. We've been through a lot of situations together on this channel. We've gotten to see a lot of violence. We've gotten to hear me being diplomatic to try to defuse violent situations. We've also gotten to hear me screaming and shouting and hooting and hollering and telling everybody on God's green earth they're a bunch of cowards. We live in the United States of America. That's the country I live in. The land of we the people and all of that crap. Sure, we say we the people. But what we show is every man for himself. And yeah, I actually said that right. Not every person for himself. Every man for himself. If you're a man who's disabled and you're victimized by a pretty woman, they'll ignore your disabilities. By they, I mean everybody. I mean the police. I mean the hospitals. I mean your own damn friends will look the other way. Because every American knows that you're not allowed to stick up to a woman. You're not allowed to stand up to her. Or you're a horrible monster. God bless America, right? Anyway, Built-In is a cool name. I approve of the game. Mine is Dogged Roman. I think one of the other ones was Saskatchewan. SEW, Saskatchewan. I assume that he's probably Canadian, but that's just an assumption based on the name. But I like the play on words. Anyway, good to be rid of you. Thanks for coming to visit. Stay out of trouble or don't get caught. Remember, you are your brother's keeper and no victim left behind. You're also your sister's keeper, too. Even if she is completely fucking mental.